500 Days of Summer is a romantic comedy directed by Mark Webb, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zooey Deschanel. Joseph plays Tom, an aspiring architect working at a greeting card company, who meets Zoe's character, Summer, when she starts working there, having recently moved to the city. Immediately, Tom is smitten by Summer's knowledge of non-obscure musical artists and her giant anime girl eyes. The movie chronicles the relationship between Tom and Summer in a non-linear fashion, jumping around the titular 500 days they're in each other's lives. We find out before we even see how they got together that they broke up and Tom didn't take it well. The movie alternates between scenes of the two of them being ridiculously cute as they grow closer and Tom processing their breakup and the aftermath that follows. One reason why the movie has stood out for so many people is that it employs a lot of unique visual storytelling. There are flashbacks, a faceless narrator, and confessional-style interviews with the characters. After the first time Summer and Tom have sex, there's this really elaborate dance number complete with animated birds. Oh, and there's a scene where the characters just shout out the word penis at an increasingly loud volume. This is high art, and you cannot convince me otherwise. There's a lot about this movie I really enjoy. I wouldn't call it one of my favorites. I don't even think it would reach my top 10, to be honest. But even with its problems, there's a lot here I really enjoy. It's just really fun to me. It's fun. Watch out, Lindsay Ellis and Maggie Mae Fish, I'm coming for you. My relationship to this movie is a really interesting one. It feels like every time I've sat down to watch it, I've been a different person, and therefore my reactions to it have changed considerably over the years. Well, hey, college friend that I will definitely be talking to a decade later. How's it going? Good, yeah, good. I just watched that 500 Days of Summer. That was really good. Yeah, that whole dance sequence after they have sex. So funny. I hated Summer though. Yeah, I mean, can you believe it? Leading on poor, adorable, loving Joseph, Tom, like that. Well, thanks for calling, friend. It was good chatting. I gotta go. I just heard about something called Instagram, and I'm gonna go check it out. Okay, bye-bye. Well, hello, friend from previous scene. How are ya? Oh, hey, that's so funny that you just watched The Walk starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt because I just rewatched my DVD of 500 Days of Summer. What a random coincidence. You know, I gotta admit, I actually didn't like Tom as much this time round. Yeah, you kind of treat Summer like a manic pixie dream girl. Cool, well, great talking to you, friend. I gotta go. I hear there's some big debate going on about a dress and I want to weigh in on it. The election? Nah, I'm not worried about the election. Who the fuck's gonna vote for Donald Trump anyway? Anyway, gotta go. Bye-bye. Donald Trump. Hey, so first of all, fuck Tom. He sucks 99% of this movie, right? He's pushy, he gaslights and lies to Summer several times. That scene in the bar, Entitlement City, right? Horrible overall. Also, this is a little wild, but stay with me here. Could Summer be a relationship anarchist? Okay, so before I can go full tin hat conspiracy theorist all over 500 Days of Summer, first I have to explain what the hell relationship anarchy is. Relationship anarchy is a philosophy about approaching and evaluating the relationships in your life in a non-hierarchical way. Not just romantic relationships either. Platonic, family, even a passing relationship with, say, the cashier you joke with every morning when you get your breakfast sandwich. Any relationship that has any value is considered. In traditional monogamy and a lot of polyamory, the couple or starting couple are put on a pedestal. Plenty of polyamorous will rank their partnerships as primary, secondary, and so forth, often depending on the longevity and perceived importance of that relationship. In her video, First, Second, Third, What is Hierarchy in Polyamory?, Jay Koyanagi of Boldly Grow describes hierarchy like this.
There is some kind of glass ceiling to the amount of entanglement, intimacy, time, what have you, that you are able to commit to that other person. Hierarchy is about imposing a structure on some relationships, but not others, outside of which those relationships can't grow.
Relationship anarchy actively rejects this, saying instead that hierarchy is unnecessary and even toxic. It asks us to challenge and push back against the assumptions that our parents, communities, and even society at large have taught us about what behaviors go with certain labels and relationships. Ugh, fucking society, I can never escape you. I suppose I could live a more nomadic lifestyle, go out in the middle of the woods, live out the land, all that kind of stuff, but honestly, I'm kind of more of a glamper kind of gal. If you ever figure out a way to make the outdoors air-conditioned and mosquito-free without contributing to the death of our planet, let me know. It is important to note that relationship anarchy is similar but not the same as non-hierarchical polyamory, the latter of which is only focused on romantic relationships. Relationship anarchy doesn't get a lot of representation, certainly not in the mainstream media, which is pretty focused on thruples or couples who opened up when they do deign talk about non-monogamy. The name itself can be pretty divisive and cause people to jump to conclusions. I mean, I'll be honest, the first time I heard the term, which was only a couple years ago, it brought to mind a very specific image.
Woo! Yeah! I don't believe in the traditional bonds of monogamy, and I will fuck whoever I want. I have 15 romantic partners. I spend equal time with them each week, which equals about 15 minutes of my time. If someone tries to label our relationship, I will punch them in the face. Metaphorically.
But after doing some more research and, actually having some conversations with relationship anarchists, I realized what a more accurate picture of their life was. And honestly, it was what I really liked the sound of.
Hey, I just wanted to be honest and communicate with you that my way of developing and maintaining relationships is a little bit out of the norm. I'm not really interested in riding the relationship escalator, as it were, and would much prefer to allow things to organically develop between myself and the other person, depending on what feels right and just what works for the two of us. Perhaps we could have a dialogue about just like ways that we can strengthen our bond without putting these big expectations about where our future is going to head. Property is death.
The term relationship anarchist was originally coined in Sweden by Andy Norgren in 2006. Norgren went on to write the modern-day relationship anarchy manifesto. According to an article Norgren wrote in 2018 called The Road to Relationship Anarchy, relationship anarchy was born out of an environment which included and celebrated an array of counterculture, such as polyamory, fetishism, interactive art, tech activism, anarchist politics, and role-playing games. We were discarding static notions of gender, which meant throwing away any relationship models built on obsolete ideas of gender and sexuality. When you can't or won't define what constitutes love or sexual attraction in a world where all these notions are irreversibly tied to sex and gender, using it as a foundation to define relationships seemed futile. Get rid of it all. We wanted anarchy and to say, fuck all order and power relations stemming from these roots.
Ugh, God, I love that last sentence so much. It sounds like something a protagonist would scream at the dystopian upper class in a YA novel.
Relationship anarchy has its roots in political anarchist ideology, which in America has existed since about the mid-19th century, but of course has existed long before that. The anarchist political movement seeks to remove the state, essentially the government and any sort of institution that is hierarchical, and replace it with direct democracy and worker cooperatives. Anarchists believe that no one person should have centralized power, that there should be a horizontal, collaborative, and voluntary system instead. In her video, The Anarchy of Relationship Anarchy, Kale of the appropriately named Relationship Anarchy channel says,
although anarchists reject most authority, there are exceptions. Rather than simply accepting the power authority has, anarchists ask two questions. Is the authority justified, and is it necessary?
For the purposes of this video, I am going to be focused on relationship anarchy, the philosophy, as opposed to the political ideology. Not because it's not relevant. I think as you'll see moving forward, it very much informs the text. However, it's really hard to get into the more fuller scope of that without slowing this video down. Plus, I can totally admit that I am not the most well-versed on this particular subject. It wasn't until I started working on this video and started writing the script that I finally read my first piece of actual political anarchy writing. I know, I'm a bad leftist. I don't like to read philosophy, but I don't like reading it and it's boring. I just want to read books about hot buys in fantasy settings, or dinosaurs, or a lot of hot buy dinosaurs. Chuck Tingle's got my back. In the short instructional manifesto for relationship anarchy, Norgren lays out the guidelines in 9 paragraphs, one for each of its founding principles. Love is abundant and every relationship is unique. Love and respect instead of entitlement. Find your core set of relationship values. Heterosexism is rampant out there, but don't let fear lead you. Build for the lovely unexpected. Fake it till you make it. Trust is better. Change through communication. Customize your commitments.
I want to make it clear before we start that this is my understanding of the manifesto and what it means and how to interpret it. I want to make that clear because if you've ever been in a relationship anarchist group, there is very rarely a consensus on anything. Some people don't even like the manifesto, claiming it's either too simplified or overly complex for a mostly labelist movement. My theory about Summer being a relationship anarchist does have some holes, and I will be addressing those. But I do think there's still a surprising amount of evidence there to support the theory that she might have some of those principles at her core. This will be a very carefully produced, edited, and professionally executed video. I think we all know what jokey clip I'm about to interrupt this.
Relationship anarchy questions the idea that love is a limited resource that can only be real if restricted to a couple. You have the capacity to love more than one person and one relationship, and the love felt for that person does not diminish love felt for another. Don't rank and compare people and relationships. Cherish the individual and your connection to them. One person in your life does not need to be named primary for the relationship to be real. Each relationship is independent and a relationship between autonomous individuals.
At its center, relationship anarchy is about rejecting the idea that only a monogamous long-term relationship has the most value in your life. There are lots of ways to receive love in your life, and the relationships you maintain with other people do have value. My friendships are extremely important in my own life. For one thing, I'm queer, so chosen family is a big part of the lives of myself and other people that I care about. So far, my friendships have outlasted any romantic relationship I've ever had. Sure, things didn't work out between myself and Bobby, Charlie, or Penelope. But you know who has stuck around and has heard about all of those? Kylie, Dave, Nancy, Sam, Billy.
While Summer never blatantly says that she values all the relationships in her life equally, or at least in a non-hierarchical way, Summer's behavior with Tom shows a strong possibility of this. We see that Summer, who views their relationship as a friendship, really does care and value Tom. She becomes so comfortable with him that she shares details of her life that she claims she never did with anyone else. Becoming emotionally vulnerable is something that many people struggle with, even with their long-term romantic partners. The fact that Summer does this really shows how much she has come to depend and really care about the relationship. Tom, on the other hand, assumes this all proves that they share a romantic connection, believing himself to outrank others in her life. He even becomes enraged when he perceives others threatening his position. Now, granted, we'd never get to see many other examples of other friendships or connections. She did just move here after all. But after their breakup, when Summer has left the greeting card company, she does get invited to a wedding of a former coworker. I honestly can't imagine why anyone would do that with just a casual water cooler acquaintance, so clearly there were other friendships and connections being made behind the scenes that were also very important to her.
Tom, meanwhile, has two friends who he just bitches at constantly and never shows any interest in showing any support to, as well as a younger sister, who frankly is a better person than he is. Tom very clearly prioritizes and values a romantic relationship over the other very loving and frankly far more patient than I think he deserves relationships in his life. Which isn't surprising. I have unfortunately known a few Toms in my life. Hell, I've definitely been a Tom at least once. Now, one major hole in my logic will have already appeared to anybody who is familiar with the movie. Summer gets married, and there is a lot of hierarchy implied in marriage. Most relationship anarchists I know are pretty vocally against it, and would argue it is not possible to be both a relationship anarchist, but then also be part of the institution of marriage. Now, with that being said, there are a few reasons why relationship anarchists could be married, like a partner needing access to benefits or citizenship, or perhaps already being married before coming upon the term and then realizing how much it resonates with you. So while it might be worth giving Summer some slight shade for, technically her status as a relationship anarchist can still be argued.
Deciding to not base a relationship on a foundation of entitlement is about respecting others' independence and self-determination. Your feelings for a person or your history together does not make you entitled to command and control a partner to comply with what is considered normal to do in a relationship. Explore how you can engage without stepping over boundaries and personal beliefs. Rather than looking for compromises in every situation, let loved ones choose paths that keep their integrity intact, without letting this mean any crisis for the relationship. Staying away from entitlement and demands is the only way to be sure that you are in a relationship that is truly mutual. Love is not more real when people compromise for each other because it's part of what's expected.
I have a little motto I like to try and remind myself of, not just when I'm in a relationship, but at all times. Have standards, not expectations. A lot of us come into relationships with preconceived notions and expectations for how that relationship will ideally develop. This is sometimes referred to as the relationship escalator. For most of us, this looks like falling in love, getting married, getting a house, having 2.5 kids and a dog, and then working ourselves to death so that daddy capitalism may run ineffectively on. Even when people aren't interested in certain aspects of this trajectory, they still typically do have an idea and have made some decisions about what behaviors they will allow when, or how they will read into certain signals given to them by the other person and then make decisions based on that idea. Some people will only have sex on the third date, or they might actually refuse to mention exes until a deeper, more meaningful connection has been made. In relationship anarchy, it's instead proposed that we try to let go of these expectations, letting each other develop and go into the paths that we're meant to without forcing compromises. Don't give ultimatums or force rules of conduct, but do respect personal beliefs and boundaries. And I know, this quote is talking specifically about entitlement here, but I personally believe that entitlement does come from expectations. You may believe that if you put in the hours after so much good behavior, that you deserve the yes as a reward, that you're entitled to it. In fact, there are a lot of straight cis men who do believe that they are entitled to a woman's affections if they show any sign of being not a straight up asshole, I guess, or friendly in any way. A straight cis man who feels entitled to a woman's affections and acts angrily when he feels he's been denied. Why does this sound familiar? Oh, right, because Tom's a piece of shit.
Throughout the film, we can see time and time again that the major conflicts come from Tom's expectations of Summer, and thus his entitlement to a romantic positioning in her life. He expects her to be feeling the same way he feels for her, and expresses a lot of anger whenever she doesn't reciprocate. This is best seen in their biggest fight, which follows Tom punching at the bar for hitting on Summer. Tom and Summer argue because Summer doesn't feel Tom should have done that, nor was it truly done for her benefit. And she's right. It's about his feelings, about his entitlement. Tom felt that the interruption was an invitation to a punching, to assert his ownership, which Summer resents. At the height of his emotions, Tom says,
"And I say we're a couple, god damn it."
Summer, of course, tells him time and time again that she doesn't see him in this way and never shows any interest in controlling him in the same way he tries to her. Beyond, I guess, her pushing him to scream the word penis in a park anyway.
Penis!
I wonder if I'm gonna get demonetized for how many times I'm gonna use that clip. Oh wait, I can't get demonetized because I'm not monetized yet because YouTube hates small creators. Please support me on patreon.com/Mainely Mandy.
How do you wish to be treated by others? What are your basic boundaries and expectations on all relationships? What kind of people would you like to spend your life with? And how would you like your relationships to work? Find your core set of values and use it for all relationships. Don't make special rules and exceptions as a way to show people you love them for real.
It is important for you to do your own self-work, questioning what is important to you in your relationships, as well as what makes you feel safest. Once you know the answer to these questions, you can then create a core value set, which will remain the same with everyone. There is no special treatment for those who gain a special rank in your life, because again, ranking is a big no-no. Instead, everybody, your lovers, your family members, your long-term partners, and your one-night stands are treated by the same values that you embody, and therefore everyone is treated fairly. Having self-talks about what is important to you helps you to move on in your life with focus and integrity. When you know what you want and what matters to you, you can be consistent and honest with everybody in your life. While having expectations is obviously a problem, having goals or future aspirations isn't. If you know in your heart of hearts you want to have kids, Go at it. Breed away, my dear. But maybe you should re-examine why you need to have a spouse in order to do so, and why you even need to cohabitate with them at all.
Okay, this one is kind of hard to prove. We never hear Summer make any reference to self-work or anything like that. We do see her, though, being fairly consistent with Tom throughout the film, and she comes across as a very self-assured person. It's not really until we see her adhere to Tom's demands and let him gaslight her into being his girlfriend that we see her looking, well, defeated, uncertain, somehow smaller than how she typically is. After the breakup, the next time we see Summer, she seems back to her old pre-dating Tom self. Also, since we never really do see any other relationships in Summer's life for the most part, it's hard to see how overarching her behavior, boundaries, and values are with everyone. Certainly, I'd like to think it's true, but I have no solid evidence to back that up.
So while I can't prove this one definitively, I do think there's at least an argument there that Summer is a self-aware person, and that the only time in her life when we see some actual self-doubt, it's Tom's fault. Because everything is.
Remember that there is a very powerful normative system in play that dictates what real love is and how people should live. Many will question you and the validity of your relationships when you don't follow these norms. Work with the people you love to find escapes and tricks to counter the worst of the problematic norms. Find positive counterspells and don't let fear drive your relationships.
See, this is why I like relationship anarchy so much. How many relationship philosophies do you know that just casually drop terms like it's fucking magic in its mission statement? Landlords are parasites. Relationship anarchy is supposed to be inherently political. It actively wishes to deconstruct the very monogamous-centric, heteronormative society and norms that we've grown up with. The point of this particular principle is that making yourself actively aware around these assumptions and norms will help you to better identify and act counter to them. I actually talked about this a lot, societal coding, in my unicorn hunting video, so if you'd like some more concrete examples, definitely go give that a watch if you haven't yet.
While we don't see much evidence of what Summer's political leanings are, her more fluid way of letting relationships grow without the need for labels or strict adherence to what society deems normal says a lot about her. Shortly after Summer and Tom agree to be friends and friends only, Summer kisses Tom by the copier. Tom assumes that because she did this, it means something else, something more. And to be fair, for a lot of people, a kiss like this would have some special meaning or significance. Tom's not completely wrong either. The fact that Summer feels like she and Tom can kiss and have it not negatively affect their relationship does show that she already feels a comfort with him she might not with other people. There are a ton of things Summer does with Tom that others would normally only do with a romantic partner. Have sex, enact cutesy scenes of domestic bliss in IKEA stores, watch porn together, hold hands, try to have sex that they saw in the porn, but then ultimately fail at it. Summer does these things with Tom because it feels comfortable to her, like a natural progression of their friendship.
Now here's another one of those pesky holes in my otherwise sound logic. Summer and Tom never have a fully conversation about this. She says things like, "I want us to be friends, is that okay?" And Tom agrees. But Summer never takes the time to explain what a friendship can entail for her. Ideally, the conversation should have played out like this.
"Hey Tom, I'm wondering, can we be friends?" "Yeah, that sounds great." "Now you should know that sometimes I like to be physically affectionate with my friends, including hand-holding, even sex sometimes if it feels right. How do you feel about that?"
"Huh, that's good to know. I personally find that I like to save those kind of touches for romantic relationships, because I find it can be really activating romantic feelings, and I don't want to risk fucking up our friendship by being a piece of shit."
That would be shitty. Thanks for your honesty. I will respect your boundaries. Whee! Communication.
And because they never have this conversation, they do not create mindful strategies to help their relationship continue developing in a way that feels coziest as possible for all parties involved. Where are my counterspells? I was promised counterspells!
So in this respect, Summer does actually fall short a bit in her relationship anarchy duties, as it were. There were several opportunities for more detailed check-ins, but Summer never does that. Now, if I want to be generous to Summer, which clearly I do because I'm biased, large-eyed girls unite! It may be her preferred method of getting consent is more nonverbal. While I have feelings, we'll just say, about relying on nonverbal consent cues, it can be a legit way to check in with somebody. And in some cases, Tom's body language does really match hers. When Summer kisses Tom in the copy room, the moment is slow, drawn out. There was plenty of time for Tom to stop and say, hey, I thought we were friends. I don't think I want to be the kind of friends that kiss in copy rooms. Feels too romantic for my brain. But he doesn't, because Tom doesn't take Summer's words at face value, believing her actions to ultimately speak louder.
I actually am going to circle back to this one again later. So before anyone gets upset that maybe I'm letting her off the hook a little bit too easy, just shh, I promise there is a method to this madness. Believe it or not.
Being free to be spontaneous, to express oneself without fear of punishments or a sense of burdened shoulds, is what gives life to relationships based on relationship anarchy. Organized based on a wish to meet and explore each other, not on duties and demands and disappointment when they are not met.
This one sounds a little bit like a motivational poster you'd see on a mommy blogger's hearth or something. A hearth? A hearth? A hearth? A hearth. I think it's a hearth. If we learn to let go what we should be doing, learning to let go of those harmful expectations, then we can allow our relationships to develop in exciting and unique and just really interesting ways that we might never have been able to do before. Maybe you'll take a trip to Italy with a loving friend rather than holding out for a spouse that may never come. Or perhaps create boundaries between yourself and a toxic family member that ultimately makes the relationship much healthier. The sky's the limit. I really want to focus on that one line in particular. Organized based on a wish to meet and explore each other. My favorite part of a relationship, any relationship, is that part where you just get to know exciting new things about the other person. Like a friend of mine who was a location scout for Breaking Bad, or this guy I dated once who just had this impressive amount of knowledge of campy horror films. Learning that stuff didn't lead us down a certain path, and I didn't get any closer to living with either one of those people or having children with them. But it was raw, human, authentic connection. It was rewarding for its own sake.
I think we can all agree that Summer is pretty spontaneous. She lives in the moment and doesn't seem interested in looking down the road to see where things may go. She shouts penis in parks. She's quirky. Okay, and I know what some of you are thinking. Isn't that all just because she's a manic pixie dream girl? And the answer is no, not even at all. Smarter people than me have discussed this before, but just really quick, we have to touch on it. Tom wants and reacts to Summer like she may be one of those quirky women who exist just to make the male protagonist feel good about himself. He idealizes her and shows distress several times at her not following the script of the quirky blank slate he can use to better himself. Ultimately, he ends up having to do that on his own. Summer is a fully fledged person. She has a past which we get to learn about and never tries to fix Tom, accepting him, almost to a fault, at face value, which he never does back. He treats Summer more than once like she is destined to be with him, the lovable protagonist at the center of his world. In their article in defense of Summer and manic pixie dream girls everywhere, Angie Schwartz says that, by gross definition, the manic pixie dream girl exists to prop up the main male character and make him feel special and important in lieu of pursuing her own goals and happiness. But Summer refuses to be a prop, and instead, unapologetically, though not unkindly, knocks Tom down along with his archaic fantasies.
So because he sees Summer as a potential MPDG for him to latch onto, those quirks take on bigger significance. I mean, she likes the Smiths, a band even I, who live under a rock musically most of the time, have even heard of.
Holy shit.
This is meant to be hilarious because Tom is putting way too much significance into this single thing.
Anyway, more than once in the film, Summer makes it clear she has no interest in building toward a definite thing. She doesn't want to label the relationship. And when Tom asks her what they're doing, she says,
I don't know. Who cares? I'm happy. Aren't you happy?
Yeah.
Good.
It also seems like her engagement follows a similar path of being unexpected, especially seeing as how she gets engaged only after, a couple of months of knowing that guy? So yeah, I think it's fair to say she's a bit of a spontaneous lady. Sometimes it can feel like you need to be some complete superhuman to handle all the norm breaking involved in choosing relationships that don't map to the norm. A great trick is the fake it till you make it strategy. When you are feeling strong and inspired, think about how you would like to see yourself act. Transform that into some simple guidelines and stick to them when things are rough. talk to and seek support from others who challenge norms. And never reproach yourself when the norm pressure gets you into behavior you didn't wish for.
I do like that at this point of the manifesto, Andy takes us all aside and goes, "Hey there, buddy, you feel a little overwhelmed? That is totally normal." Then pats us on our heads, put us underneath a weighted blanket, and whispers sweet, sweet anarchist nothings into our ears. This can all be really hard, and it's going to be harder for some of us more than others, depending on the communities that we came from, the communities we are part of now, and the values that we have to unpack. I have a friend who is queer, non-binary, and non-monogamous, and came from a strict religious background. Like, we're talking former Jehovah's Witness here. So sometimes when they're explaining to me some of the norms that they have to get over in order to be a better partner now, I completely understand why it's so challenging. Now, for me personally, religion isn't really a thing I have to unpack in the same way. See, I grew up Northern Baptist, which is a pretty chill form of Christianity. You know, our pastors all drink beer, we're all about our barbecues, and once a month we like to dunk a parishioner into a kiddie pool full of water in front of the entire congregation. You know, for Jesus. I do, on the other hand, have to unpack certain norms that come from my family upbringing, like being really conflict averse. In my family, it's kind of rude to call somebody out on behavior that you find harmful or unpleasant. It's akin to basically accusing someone of murder. And I know that sounds super melodramatic, but you have to understand, I accidentally snapped at an aunt of mine like over a year ago, and she still has me blocked on Facebook. No one is expecting you to be magically perfect at relationship anarchy from the get-go. It takes time, a lot of practice, and a lot of self-worth. Give yourself some leeway. Find people or communities where you can get support. And remember that even the most seasoned relationship anarchists still make mistakes now and then.
This, by the way, is one of the reasons that even when I do see the ways that Summer doesn't completely succeed at being the perfect RA babe, that I find myself giving her some leeway. She's allowed to make mistakes, because we all do. Summer hides the fact that she's engaged when she sees Tom again at the wedding months later. It probably should have been really clear to Summer that Tom should have been told about the state of her relationship status, especially before inviting him over to what I think might have been her engagement party. Yeah, that's a real solid move.
Thankfully, Summer does apologize for this at the end of the film. Tom, however, never actually does this. Out loud anyway. He never acknowledges or apologizes the many assumptions that he made, the way he treated Summer, or the fact that he blatantly lied to her.
Yeah, of course I like you.
As friends?
Right, as friends.
Just as friends?
Yeah.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
We see the potential for growth, and he does wishes Summer well before they part ways. But the movie is really ambiguous as to whether or not he has actually learned his lesson or will continue to approach things in this manner.
Choosing to assume that your partner does not wish you harm leads you down a much more positive path than a distrustful approach, where you need to be constantly validated by the other person to trust that they are there with you in the relationship. Sometimes people have so much going on inside themselves that there's just no energy left to reach out and care for others. Create the kind of relationship where withdrawing is both supported and quickly forgiven. And give people lots of chances to talk, explain, see you, and be responsible in the relationship. Remember your core values and to take care of yourself, though.
Relationship anarchy actively encourages us to let go of assuming the worst of a partner just because they fail to meet expectations or something they do triggers our insecurities. By granting each other grace, we're allowed to be excited and express joy for those moments when our partners are able to actually show up for us, rather than focusing on those perceived failures. Trusting that the people we love and care about also love and care about us back can be really hard sometimes. Certainly it can be for me. Hey, so I texted you about the Nazi punching rally at 6:30 and you didn't get back to me until 6:37. So I just want to know, who are you hanging out with? Why do you like them more than me? And why don't you love me anymore? Now, I don't think this one is saying blindly trust anyone no matter what. I think instead it's trying to encourage us to reframe someone else's motives in a way that is actually more forgiving. Did your friend not answer your text because they secretly hate you and actually find you exhausting? Or were they busy? Maybe they were taking a nap. Maybe they were going through their own depressive episode and had to use what little energy they had to take care of themselves.
I think there's a lot of evidence to support Summer following this guideline. Despite at times being kind of, the worst, we see time and time again Summer giving Tom the benefit of the doubt. We never see her questioning him or his commitment to her in any way, which is the complete opposite of Tom's behavior. There's a scene where Tom assumes at one point that Summer must have had a wild weekend of sex with a stranger, all because she says,
It was good.
Can you believe that shit? She said it was good, emphasis on the good. She basically said she spent the weekend having sex with some guy she met at the gym.
Tom, my dude, what the fuck?
Did she say, hey, instead of hi? I mean, because you know that means that she's a lesbian, right?
Being stuck with Tom's perspective, it's hard to know for certain if Summer ever had moments of doubt or insecurities. But with the information I do have, it seems like Summer takes Tom at his word and trusts him to be honest with her. Hell, even after they reconnect and Tom is just so clearly still into her and reading way too much into them, even just dancing together, Summer extends the benefit of the doubt almost to mythic proportions.
She literally wrote in the email that she was glad that you seem ready to be friends. Do you know how frustrating it is as someone who works in an office when someone doesn't read what's in the... Oh my God, Jonas, it's in the email. What happened to the printer? I CC'd you and everything.
For most human activities, there is some form of norm in place for how it's supposed to work. If you want to deviate from this pattern, you need to communicate. Otherwise, things tend to end up just following the norm as others behave according to it. Communication and joint actions for change is the only way to break away. Radical relationships must have conversation and communication at the heart, not as a state of emergency only brought out to solve problems. Communicate in a context of trust. We are so used to people never really saying what they think and feel that we have to read between the lines and extrapolate to find out what they really mean. But such interpretations can only build on previous experiences, usually based on the norms you want to escape. Ask each other about stuff and be explicit.
Talk. Talk a lot. Talk all the time. Talk with your friends, your partners, and your family members. Talk with strangers on the bus who are just trying to listen to their favorite podcast while they politely ignore you. Talk till your skin withers and your eyes melt out of your face, and to your left is a corpse on the Mojave for the scavengers to pick across your... Sorry, I think I got a little caught up there. Anyway, the point is, if you want your relationships to develop in healthy, happy ways, you should have regular check-ins. Talk about your feelings until all that's left is a profound feeling to shut the fuck up already and just watch some episodes of The Crown. I mean, you all can watch The Crown. I honestly can't do it. I'm too American. Watching anything with the British monarchy makes me want to throw tea into the nearest body of water. Take this, King George! In any kind of relationship that is trying to break the mold, it's really important for us to have these active conversations about what works and doesn't work for us. Non-monogamy isn't taught the same way that monogamy is. It's assumed that one will be monogamous unless you purposely go out of your way to act differently. Much in the same way, we don't get the same kind of coding around queer relationships that we do straight relationships. In monogamy, there just isn't a lot of coding around how non-monogamous relationships work. If you have a bunch of kids playing in a sandbox together, you don't have someone going, oh look, that's his polycule. On Multimemory Podcast, hosts Dedeker, Jace, and Emily have a check-in that they can do with partners, metas, really anyone you care about. That's called Radar. I'll include the link to the full podcast down below, but basically this is a monthly-ish check-in that they encourage their listeners to do, and it stands for
Review, past actions and past month, agree on lineup/agenda, discuss, action points, reconnect.
Now, obviously, Radar is not the only system of check-ins out there. I'm sure if you do some research, you can find plenty. I just wanted to share one in particular that I've seen that seems to work for some people that I care about and also has some nice foundations to it. Now, I've already talked a bit in length about how Tom and Summer's communication leaves something to be desired, how they never have a full check-in about how to make sure that the relationship is developing in ways they both found cozy. So I am going to move on from this point. I also just think there's something kind of funny about purposely not talking about the one that's about talking. Or is it not as funny if I point that out? You know, maybe what we should do is you and me should sit down and have a dialogue about how I can...
Relationship anarchy is not about never committing to anything. It's about designing your own commitments with the people around you and freeing them from norms dictating that certain types of commitment are a requirement for love to be real, or that some commitments, like raising children or moving in together, have to be driven by certain kinds of feelings. Start from scratch and be explicit about what kind of commitments you want to make with other people.
A really hurtful idea that I've come across a few times, both from strangers on the internet as well as people that I've known, is this idea that non-monogamous people aren't interested in committed long-term relationships. They only do non-monogamy because they can't commit to one person. They aren't mature enough for real commitment. Or perhaps they don't actually love or care about any of the people that they're dating. I really resent the idea that anything about my way of approaching relationships indicates a lack of seriousness or commitment. In fact, the idea of serious, stable, long-term commitment that allows for personal growth and changes, escalations and de-escalations, and everything that can come in having a relationship with someone sounds incredible. And I think Summer would agree with us.
Summer tries not to shape her relationships in accordance to societal norms, instead trying to allow it to blossom in ways that feel comfortable and affirming. Nothing about that demonstrates a lack of interest in commitment. In fact, Summer gets married. She makes a very big commitment to someone who, though we never meet, she clearly adores and cares about a lot. Now, I will say that in talking about her relationship with this man, Summer makes a point of telling Tom that part of why she got married is because she feels a certainty with him, that she never felt with Tom.
It just happened.
Right, but that's what I don't understand. What just happened?
I just woke up one day and I knew.
Knew what?
What I was never sure of with you.
And to be honest, that line has always kind of hit me weird during rewatches.
Because on the one hand, I actually do kind of get what Summer's getting at here. I know what it's like to sometimes connect to somebody and have these really amazing layers to it, including being very intimate and vulnerable with that person, but just never quite having that inner oomph, so to say, very, very scientific term, I know, that indicates a romantic connection. I know what it's like when I've fallen for someone. I can't logically explain it. I can't graph it out. It's just something I feel. It should also be pointed out that there are people out there who very rarely or never even experience romantic love. Oh shit, what if Summer is a demi-romantic? Oh my god. Okay, stay tuned for my follow-up video.
Why the fuck you lying? Why?
On the other hand, I feel like this is one of those moments when the movie undermines its own message. Throughout the film, it's made clear time and time again that the reason why Tom is struggling so much is by having too many expectations, from internalizing too many romantic ideals from fictional sources like movies and other media. I mean, there is literally a scene, perhaps the most infamous and well done of the whole film, in which we see a side-by-side comparison of what Tom expects to have happen and what actually does. But then the movie has Summer find her one, and Tom is left with a sense that his own might be out there somewhere. He just looked in the wrong place. Ooh, and maybe her name is also another season? Oh my god, wee! Why are you like this?
Honestly, this is kind of a big problem the movie has in general. Due to Tom being the protagonist, the visual language being used, and just the fact that I think so many of us find Joseph Gordon-Levitt so gosh darn adorable and dapper, the movie doesn't really land its mission statement. In the article, What Can We Learn from 500 Days of Summer 10 Years Later, Ali Banash says,
the film fails to fully realize the manic pixie dream girl subversion as it drowns from the weight of Tom's perspective and his tendency to idealize. That the film overwhelmingly preferences his point of view caused many to think that an alternative reading of the movie would be to fault Summer as the cause of the breakup. What has become even more obvious with time is that the movie doesn't even give us the tools or proper character arch to make that call.
I, for one, will continue holding out hope to a sequel to 500 Days of Summer, which will be from Summer's viewpoint. It'll be called 500 Days of Tom, and it's all about this quirky, adorable girl with giant anime eyes who will go on to realize that her boyfriend is a jerk, so she'll dump his toxic ass and then scream joyful names of genitalia into the wind.
So does my theory that Summer is a relationship anarchist actually hold up? That is a solid...
Certainly I like to think I at least made some arguments as to why she could be viewed in that way if you so wish. One of the writers of the film did say that Summer is in part based on a woman he knew in college. So is it possible the original Summer is in fact a relationship anarchist? Well, maybe, but of course I can't know that for sure, and I'm not really comfortable making a definitive statement on that. All of the relationship anarchist tenets that I have covered today basically come down to a few simple truths. Own your own baggage, be respectful of others' boundaries, let relationships organically grow in the way that feels right, not the way society has dictated. And talk. Talk a lot. Can't forget that one. If you ever meet someone who claims to be a relationship anarchist, but then uses that as an excuse to be shitty, dismissive, never own their own behaviors, or be supportive of your own needs, that's not a relationship anarchist. That's just a fuckboy who learned a fancy new term and then refused to do any actual research about it. These chuckle fucks are relationship libertarians at best. Now that's not an actual relationship philosophy, really. It's more of a derogatory term that is used towards relationship anarchists who take that individualism to such an extreme as to become toxic assholes. Like, I get the argument these people are trying to have, but it just doesn't really hold up for me at all. Like, there's having personal boundaries and owning your own shit, and then there's telling someone that sounds like a you problem if they tell you your actions are harmful to them. If you do want to learn more about relationship anarchy, I highly suggest you check out some of the links that I have down below. This video is definitely not meant to be an all-encompassing relationship anarchy video, definitely more of a 101 that you can then use as a jumping off point to hopefully learn more. I see relationship anarchy as a way to explore multiple loving relationships in my own life. It doesn't come with caveats or expectations, doesn't accept the status quo as gospel. Instead, it encourages self-awareness and accepting yours and other people's failures, and also just seeing the best in everyone. Maybe I didn't convince anyone watching this that Summer is in fact a relationship anarchist, and that's fine. It was kind of a long shot anyway. But at the very least, I do hope I got you to question a little bit about the way you allow relationships in your own life to develop, or how you don't allow them to develop. What are the norms that you've accepted as gospel that you've never really questioned until now? Things like that. Our lives are meant to be lived as part of a community, and I think now, especially, that's really important to remember. It's also important to remember, fuck all the order and power relations stemming from these roots! Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Look, there's a cat. This is Murray. This is the cat who wasn't in my last video because he's a chaos goblin. There are lots of ways that you can support me, of course. You can go over to patreon.com/mainlymandy and select whatever tier you want. Everything, you know, from $1 up to $50 really helps me out a lot. And plus you get cool little behind the scene bonuses, including pictures or blooper reels, all kinds of stuff like that. So definitely go over there if you're interested in becoming a monthly subscriber. Alternatively, if you wanted to help out but can only do a one-time donation, that is also very generous of you and so nice of you to do. I have a Ko-fi page, I have a Venmo, I have a PayPal. And of course, if you don't have any money to give, a really great way to support this channel, honestly, is just making sure you're hitting the like button, sharing this in your favorite relationship anarchist spaces, engaging in the comments below, telling me what you think I got right, what you think I got wrong. Anyway, thank you so much. I hope to have my next video out in about another month. We'll see. The next one's gonna be a beast. So I might do something kind of short, a little bit different in between this one and the next one, and just do something a little bit more simplistic. So keep an eye on for that. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the ring little bell thing so that you actually get notified, because boy, YouTube is an interesting platform to be on, especially right now. I picked a hell of a time to join it. So thank you all so much, and I will see you next time. I do kind of want tea now.